In this lecture, the following topics will be discussed: the family tree of consciousness, absolute love, the monad, the God seed, and building the pillar of light. The family tree of consciousness. Every individual being in the universe exists as an intrinsic part of a greater collective of consciousness from which its being originally emerged. This multidimensional collective consciousness is known as the family of consciousness, and every individual is connected to its family of consciousness through a multidimensional family tree. Each Earth human thus has, by the nature of its existence, a family tree of consciousness, through which its identity has emerged into individuation, into its present moment space-time orientation. The family tree of consciousness spans many space-time and dimensional fields, following the intrinsic 15-dimensional structure of universal design. Within the sets of 15-dimensional matrices and their inherent sets of 3-dimensional systems, the 5 harmonic universes in each 15-dimensional matrix that form universal structure, the family tree of consciousness branches outward into each harmonic universe, creating a myriad of different individuated forms. In every human family tree of consciousness, smaller identity consciousness gestalts are formed within each of the 5 harmonic universes, creating a universal web of identity through which each individuated member retains its connection to the source of its creation beyond the dimensionalized structures of the 15-dimensional time matrices. The smaller consciousness gestalts within the 15-dimensional matrices that compose the time matrix follow specific designs of energy that are intrinsic to the energetic composition of universal and cosmic structure. Cosmic structure is designed upon wave grids, or complex patterns of energy weavings that form sets of interwoven unified fields of energy that coexist within one gestalt unified field known as the mind of God. The unified fields of energy that make up the infinite contours of the God-mind gestalt are composed first and primarily of units of consciousness of the God-mind. These units of consciousness, known scientifically as partikai, particay, and particum, group into complex geometrical patterns, forming first strings, then grids of consciousness. These grids of consciousness constitute the underlying structures or consciousness templates upon which all manifestation is built. The consciousness templates are called morphogenetic fields, and they represent conscious, living, intelligent, individuated aspects of the God-mind. Morphogenetic fields are the creative thoughts of God born into perpetual manifestation. The entire cosmic structure of the non-dimensionalized energy matrix and its inherent smaller universal constructs of the time matrix are built upon the living conscious substance of morphogenetic fields, and so the entire cosmos is conscious, alive, and aware, existing within and perpetually manifesting as expressions of the eternal God-mind. The units of consciousness of God, the partikai, particay, and particum, upon which morphogenetic fields are built, form the first building blocks upon which the subparticles, particles, and antiparticles of matter, prematter, and antimatter radiation manifest, and thus all matter forms, from the microcosm to the macrocosm, are intrinsically composed of the substance of God. Within the infinite contours of cosmic structure, uncountable smaller structures of creation are formed. The multidimensional family tree of consciousness, through which human consciousness and other forms of identity receive individuation while retaining their God connection, exists as a structure of ordered consciousness within the greater structures of creation. The family tree of consciousness, like cosmic structure, is built upon conscious morphogenetic fields that span the micro and macrocosmic contours of the time and energy matrices. The multidimensional morphogenetic field of the family tree of consciousness can be understood as a template of identity through which the human body and consciousness are directly connected to the God mind. There can be no real separation between the individual and the God mind, for the morphogenetic template of identity upon which the individual consciousness manifests exists as an intrinsic part of the cosmic identity structure, and both the individual and the cosmos exist eternally within the God mind. So then, the process of spiritual advancement to attain at-one-ment with God is not a process of recreating a condition that once existed in the beginning and then was lost. Rather, it is a process of progressively expanding one's individual awareness, both outward and inward, beyond the boundaries of personality individuation to encompass the totality of the ever-present God mind. The journey toward at-one-ment with God, which is described as atonement in traditional religious writings, is a process of expanding into the cognition of I am God, knowing the self as a living expression of this infinite consciousness, knowing the self as an eternal collective of consciousness within which no real separation exists between God and its infinite manifestations. When one expands to encompass the knowing that I am God, one simultaneously understands that all is God, and therefore does not place the personal individuated identity as above or superior to any other manifestation of the God mind. Humility and reverence for all life, not illusions of personal grandeur, are the result of knowing oneself as the I Am presence in complete at-one-ment with God. At-one-ment and absolute love. Through the condition of at-one-ment with God, genuine love can be known. The feeling of love is a result of the condition of vibrational harmonization, or the co-resonance of consciousness between the lover and the beloved. Expansion into at-one-ment with God creates the condition of absolute harmonization between the individual consciousness and the God mind, a co-resonance of consciousness between God and the individuated manifestations of itself. In terms of felt experience, at-one-ment creates the feeling of absolute love, unconditional love, the quality of love that the God mind experiences toward all of its manifestations, with whom it eternally remains in a state of vibrational co-resonance of consciousness. All things exist within the mind of God, and so the God mind exists in a perpetual state of vibrational co-resonance, or absolute love, with all manifestations of itself. The experience of lack of love reflects the condition of non-resonance of consciousness between the individuated manifestation of God and the totality of the God mind. Non-resonance of consciousness, or vibrational disharmony between the individual mind and the God mind, can only be experienced by the individual who has yet to achieve at-one-ment with the totality of itself as a manifestation of the God mind. Personal expansion into at-one-ment, or harmonic resonance with the God mind, allows the individual to transcend all vibrational disharmonics of consciousness, to retain co-resonance with the cosmos. At-one-ment creates absolute love, and absolute love is the eternal vibrational co-resonance of consciousness that holds the structures of the cosmos together. Absolute love creates the experience of absolute joy and ecstatic fulfillment, and in human terms generates the emotional attributes of all those feelings and sensations deemed as good. All conditions of disease, conflict, pain, anguish, and suffering are the direct result and manifestation of vibrational disresonance of consciousness with the God mind. The only absolute cure for any malady is absolute love. The reinstatement of vibrational co-resonance of consciousness between the individual and the eternal divine. Suffering is intended to show one the areas in which disharmonics of consciousness reside, and represents the attempts of the multidimensional identity to reorder its consciousness into harmonic co-resonance with the eternal God-mind. As at-one-ment with God creates absolute love, and absolute love, co-resonance of consciousness between one and the divine, creates the absolute cure for all suffering, the condition of achieving at-one-ment is most desirable if one seeks to end suffering and expand into the transcendent realities of ecstatic fulfillment. Creating the experience of at-one-ment with God is the process of progressive expansion beyond the boundaries of the personality and ego identity into the greater aspects of Gestalt identity as contained within the family tree of consciousness. A progressive realization of the self as a plural rather than singular construct. The personal identity is not lost, overtaken, or compromised within the expansion of self. It is instead itself expanded to become the Gestalt identity, just as the identity of the child expands to become the adult. As the macro and microcosm are structured upon templates of consciousness, morphogenetic fields, it is most helpful to understand these basic structures of consciousness if one seeks to achieve at-one-ment with God. Through understanding the structures of God consciousness upon which the individual and the cosmos is built, an individual can begin to grasp and apply the specific mechanics of conscious energy through which at-one-ment is achieved. Comprehending the structure of multidimensional identity and the family tree of consciousness out of which each individual emerges provides a conceptual roadmap to the destination of ultimate at-one-ment with God. For this reason, the God-mind makes available to its individuated manifestations in time the knowledge of morphogenetic field structure, so the individual may consciously co-create its experience of evolution and expansion into at-one-ment. Templates of consciousness, the Hoover bodies. The morphogenetic field, or template of consciousness, of the family tree of consciousness for each human individual is a 15-dimensional structure of energetic substance composed of units of consciousness, Partakai, Partake, and Particum. There is a set pattern of organization inherent to this structure, which corresponds to the greater universal morphogenetic fields of which the time matrix is composed. Multidimensional human identity possesses 5 primary structures in time. These energy identity structures are called the Uriah Hoover bodies, and one Uriah Hoover body corresponds directly to and exists within one of the 5 harmonic universe structures of one 15-dimensional time matrix. As each harmonic universe is composed of 3-dimensional fields, each Uriah Hoover body is thus structured upon the 3 templates of consciousness, or morphogenetic wave grids, characteristic to the harmonic universe within which the Uriah Hoover body is stationed. Each of the 5 Uriah Hoover bodies of human consciousness construction represent energy forms, or templates of geometrically arranged energy, which hold the instructional program and underlying intelligence upon which the matter form and identity will manifest within its respective harmonic universe. The three-dimensional Ariyahuva bodies are morphogenetic fields that are constructed upon units of consciousness, part Kai, part K, and part Kam, which take the form of templates of crystallized or frozen sound. Through the process of the consciousness moving through the unified energy fields of each harmonic universe, these particles of frozen sound are stimulated into vibrational movement. This stimulation of crystallized sound patterns transforms the original crystalline sound into a living pattern of conscious awareness that takes the form of a fixed standing wave pattern known as a scalar wave. Each Ariyahuva body is thus a scalar field or scalar grid, a field of fixed standing scalar waves which is built upon a conscious morphogenetic template of sound. As consciousness moves itself or evolves through the 5 harmonic universes of a 15-dimensional matrix, it progressively stimulates into life the scalar grids of the Ariyahuva bodies, bringing into activation and manifest expression progressively more portions of its family tree of consciousness. The process of expanding the personality into at-one-ment with God by progressively expanding the identity to include the family tree of consciousness has its equivalent action in terms of interdimensional electromagnetic dynamics. At-one-ment energetically represents the progressive activation of the scalar grids that compose the Ariyahuva bodies within which the consciousness of the family tree resides. Understanding the simple structures of the Huva bodies and the greater morphogenetic construction within which they exist makes the process of achieving at-one-ment comprehensible. Though there are many complex multidimensional mechanics involved within the operations of consciousness and the Huva bodies, it is enough to understand the basic existence of the Huva body structures, for with this knowledge one can take an active hand in the personal evolutionary process. The Ariyahuva bodies of the 5 harmonic universes hold the levels of identity that are known as the incarnate in harmonic universe 1, dimensions 1, 2, and 3, the soul in harmonic universe 2, dimensions 4, 5, and 6, the oversoul in harmonic universe 3, dimensions 7, 8, and 9, the avatar or Christed identity in harmonic universe 4, dimensions 10, 11, and 12, and the Rishi identity in harmonic universe 5, dimensions 13, 14, and 15. Each of these identity components represents a level of structure within the family tree of consciousness, and each represents a Gestalt identity out of which numerous individual identities emerge. As the human on Earth evolves to expand its identity toward at-one-ment, each of these levels of identity progressively merge, which in energetic terms means that the morphogenetic scalar grids of the Ariyahuva bodies progressively merge. The process of Huva body merger and identity integration is the intrinsic process of human evolution through time. If one can understand that the goal of at-one-ment with God is achieved through merging the Huva bodies and identity levels, the process of achieving at-one-ment becomes clear and more easily attainable. The 5 dimensionalized Ariyahuva bodies of the human morphogenetic field exist as part of a larger morphogenetic template that includes 3 other non-dimensionalized Huva bodies, the Useta Huva bodies. The 5 Ariyahuva bodies correspond to the portions of the family tree of consciousness that are expressing within the dimensionalized fields of the time matrix. The 3 Useta Huva bodies correspond to the larger portions of the family tree that are stationed in the energy matrix within which the time matrix exists. The Useta Huva bodies represent the 3 levels of personal Gestalt identity expansion that are referred to as ascended mastery. The levels of identity in the Useta-Huva bodies correspond to the three non-dimensionalized levels of the cosmic energy matrix: the triadic matrix, the polaric matrix, and closest to full expansion into the God mind, the achatic matrix. The identity levels corresponding to these three cosmic matrices of consciousness are the geomantic entity in the triadic matrix, the rishe in the polaric matrix, and the ekar within the achatic matrix. As an individual expands its identity toward its oneness with God, it will progressively expand through and incorporate into itself the 8 levels of Gestalt identity as held within the collective 8 Huva bodies of the family tree of consciousness. Each of these identity levels represent a crystalline morphogenetic field that becomes a progressively expanding scalar grid as the levels of identity progressively expand into integration. When viewed collectively, the 8 Huva bodies of the human family tree of consciousness represent one larger morphogenetic field made of fixed points of sound and light that is called the monad, or monadic identity imprint. The monad and the God seed. The monad is an energy form, a scalar grid, which holds the entire electrotonal design of the cosmic family tree of consciousness. It is composed of the 8 Huva bodies and the stations of consciousness contained within them. The monad exists as a Gestalt identity morphogenetic field, eternally stationed within the God seed in the God mind. The monad contains within its structure the smaller individuated morphogenetic fields for the ekar identity and the smaller identity levels of the 8 Huva bodies. For the individual identity incarnated in time, the monad is the key to achieving at-one-ment and expansion into the God mind, and to attaining freedom from the cycles of space, time, and matter manifestation within the time matrix. The monad represents the core program of light, sound, energy, consciousness, and identity through which the original seed of consciousness and the family tree of consciousness were created. The original geometrical construction of consciousness that emanated forth from the God seed to create the 8 Huva body morphogenetic field. The monad is the singular point of unified energy identity within the Gestalt of the cosmic family tree of consciousness, and represents the individual's direct connection to the God seed and to final expansion into God. The God seed represents a core morphogenetic field out of which multiple monads, or cosmic family lines of consciousness, emerge. There are 24 primary God seed identities within the God mind. They are referred to as Uset identities. The Uset, or God seed identities, possess perpetual, eternal, cognizant at-one-ment with the God mind. Each of the 24 Uset identities creates within itself sets of 12 monads, or cosmic family lines of consciousness. Each monad creates within itself sets of 12 ekar identities, or original seeds of consciousness, which begin the manifestation of sets of 12 universal family lines of consciousness within the energy and time matrices. The God seed, the monad, and the original seed of consciousness are interwoven, but are not the same energy constructs. Each God seed, or Uset, holds within its design the pattern for 12 monads, or cosmic family lines. Each monad, or cosmic family line, creates sets of 12 ekar identities, universal family lines. Each seed of consciousness, or universal family line, creates family trees of consciousness within the energy and time matrices. In relation to an earth individual achieving at-one-ment with God, the dimensionalized family tree of consciousness, the non-dimensionalized ekar identity, or universal family, the monad, or cosmic family, and the God seed, or God family, together represent a pillar of direct connection in consciousness between the God mind and all of its individuated parts. This pillar of consciousness exists as interconnected platforms of identity through which the individual progressively expands as it evolves into full at-one-ment with God. In understanding the basic structure of this cosmic hierarchy of identity, one can learn to use the individual consciousness in ways that expedite the process of evolution through expansion into at-one-ment with God. And one can more easily keep the process of evolution on its intended course. One of the fastest ways to realign personal evolution with the destination of at-one-ment with God, and to accelerate the process of evolution, is to bring the dormant energetic design of the monad and the God seed, morphogenetic scalar grids, to life within the earthly body and consciousness. Activating the God seed and building the pillar of light. Earlier exercises in this tape series, such as anchoring the fifth dimensional archetype and the eighth dimensional monad into the earthly incarnate of the harmonic universe one identity, is a good place to begin the process of awakening the monad and the God seed within the human individual. Anchoring the archetype and the monad frequencies of identity into incarnational embodiment prepares the physical body and consciousness for activation and active embodiment of the monadic and God seed identity. But even if these preliminary exercises are not practiced, the following exercise on Side B will set the entire process in motion for the earthly incarnate. The following exercise is called Activating the God Seed, and through this process, the scalar grids of all 8 Huva bodies are stimulated into simultaneous activation, which begins a systematic realignment of the entire multidimensional identity structure with the original design of its family tree of consciousness, its monad, and its God seed. If there are distortions within the scalar grids of the Huva bodies, these will begin to purge and realign with activation of the God seed. For some individuals, realignment of the Huva bodies can take numerous subsequent incarnations. In such cases, the process of activating the God seed will align the consciousness of the earthly personality with the greater objective of evolution to at-one-ment, providing a beacon of energetic guidance from the God seed and monadic cosmic family. Through this energetic beacon of guidance, the individual can learn to consciously co-assist in the process of Huva body realignment, entering the process of conscious evolution. Activating the God seed begins the process of building the pillar of light for the earthly incarnate. The pillar of light is a morphogenetic construction of scalar grids that appears in the bioenergetic field as a progressively expanding pillar or tube of multicolored light. The pillar of light, which forms through the progressive activation, alignment, and merger of the Huva bodies, is the conduit through which the consciousness of God flows into conscious human embodiment. The full pillar of light is constructed when the 8 Huva bodies have been aligned, activated, and opened into the consciousness of the God seed. This is called God realization. To understand this evolutionary process in simple terms, one can view evolution as the progressive building of the pillar of light that connects one through the fields of time and hierarchy of identity directly into the mind and heart of God. Activating the God seed begins to build the pillar of light from the top down, the God seed down to the incarnate, progressively aligning the geometrical constructs of the monad's morphogenetic field with its original design within the God mind. As the 8 Huva bodies in the monad's scalar grid progressively align and merge with each other, the pillar of light progressively descends toward the incarnate, eventually encompassing the incarnate's body and consciousness within the hierarchy of identity. The process of remerging the personal identity with the pillar of light has been referred to as entering the fold, through which the incarnate reawakens to its direct connection with the God mind, ultimately expanding to know itself as a limitless expression of God. The Melchizedek God Seed. Of the 24 eternal God Seeds, or you-set identities, within the God mind, only one God Seed is responsible for the entire multi-galactic human lineage. The original human lineage was manifested upon 12 monads, or cosmic families, and each of the 12 monads manifested 12 seeds of consciousness, Ekar identities, or universal families of consciousness, within the energy and time matrices. All of the dimensionalized universal and cosmic human families of consciousness manifested through one common God seed, or you-set identity. This common God family, consciousness gestalt, goes by the name of Melchizedek. In the multi-galactic scheme of universal creation, the God mind also manifests cosmic family lines through the 23 other God seeds. Many of the ancient interstellar races that entered the time matrix prior to the human families of consciousness have as their God seed a you-set identity other than the Melchizedek collective. Through the course of interstellar history, numerous families of both the Melchizedek lineage and other God seed lines encountered difficulties within their monadic imprint and found themselves unable to retain their connection to the pillar of light. Distortions within the geometrical structures of their morphogenetic fields rendered their Hoover bodies unable to merge, a condition that keeps the consciousness trapped in time, unable to achieve full expansion into at-one-ment with God. Of the 24 God seeds, the Melchizedek God seed is one of the few who have kept the pillar of light unbroken through the majority of their family lines. The Melchizedek collective has thus become known as the keeper of the codes and guardians of the path of ascension for all races within the time matrix. The human Taurinacium lineage is one of the race manifestations of the Melchizedek God seed, and it was created to serve as a vessel through which the consciousness of interstellar races trapped in time could re-evolve into at-one-ment with the God mind. Most of the beings now incarnate in human form did not originally begin their journey into time with a human imprint. Most present-day humans were originally consciousness that manifested in other than human form, emerging out of one of the other 23 God seed families. In the beginnings of human creation, these other families of consciousness were spliced into the human morphogenetic and genetic lines, so that they could re-evolve through the Melchizedek God seed. This process of splicing one family of consciousness into the morphogenetic field of another is called a host matrix transplant, and the Melchizedek God seed has served as a host matrix for the ascension of many interstellar races. Most humans possess other than human incarnational memories within their subconscious minds, and many of these other than human races were not originally part of the Melchizedek God seed families. Within the Melchizedek monads, or cosmic family lines, there thus exists two primary branches, one gestalt formed by the other God seed families who were host matrix transplanted into the Melchizedek family, and another gestalt composed of the original families of consciousness that emerged directly from the Melchizedek God seed. The original family lines of the Melchizedek God seed are referred to as the Melchizedek cloister. When an earth incarnate begins the process of activating the God seed, it calls into manifestation within its genetic code and consciousness the scalar grids of its original monad, or cosmic family, and God seed, upon which its family of consciousness originally manifested. It begins to build the pillar of light toward itself from its respective God seed.